Hi, everyone. It's Brittany, and welcome to another episode of One Hot Mess. All right, y'all. Today, we're going to be talking about why we are often attracted to people we cannot be with. Have you ever found yourself fantasizing about someone you shouldn't be thinking about in that way? Or maybe you just look forward to the days when you'll be around a particular person. Meetings with an attractive coworker, say, or dropping off your child at soccer practice and chatting with the coach. And you know you shouldn't like this person as much as you do, and you know you won't act on these feelings, but you still have that little secret hope that your crush feels the same way about you. Before you start beating yourself up, take a deep breath and a step back. First, it is important to acknowledge that sexual and romantic attraction are often simply basic and normal physiological responses to attractive stimuli. So you shouldn't beat yourself up when you realize that you've developed a crush on someone you shouldn't. We don't consciously tell our brain to generate attraction to particular people. It does it on its own. It's like looking at a desert and your mouth watering. You can't stop a natural reaction like that. And while it isn't easy to avoid these instinctual reactions, it is within your control to avoid acting on them. You don't have to be hard on yourself for finding someone attractive, but you don't have to give yourself permission to act on that attraction either. And the brain is a funny thing. It turns out that the things that we believe are so-called forbidden are things that we typically want even more because of it, at least for a while. Studies have shown that people trying to cut back on calories are more likely to think about the high calorie foods they're trying to avoid. If time away and time spent thinking about other things is what you need to give yourself a break, then it's definitely worth trying. If a tempting treat isn't in your fridge, you're not going to be able to just gobble it down. Most of the time, though, repeated exposure to, the hot crush will actually dull your attraction. The novelty wears off, and you can begin to see the faults a crush have that were invisible during the early stages of attraction. And if you find you're most attracted to people who are off limits, you might ask yourself whether you're relationship phobic and are choosing people who would never really be attainable as partners. If you're afraid of commitment, it's safer not to let your heart crush on potential partners. It may be that you are crushing on a specific type of unattainable partner. Maybe you're crushing on dad types or the husbands of your friends. And while it's not so much that you find the guys attractive, perhaps you really dig the idea of motherhood and wish for a partner who would be the kind of dad these guys seem to be. Or maybe you're a guy crushing on friends who are new moms because you'd really like to be a dad at this point in your life. Sometimes the people who are most attractive to us are those who have qualities we would actually like to have ourselves. Say you are always attracted to assertive but compassionate people. Maybe you wish you could be more assertive in your own life or a little kinder to others. that would explain why people with these qualities were the ones who caught your attention subconsciously. And if you were just falling for the same bad boy or bad girl, even though you're 30 something, your rebellious streak from adolescence may not have run its course, and you still long to ride off into the sunset to a Bruce Springsteen soundtrack. I don't know. But don't risk existing relationships by sharing a secret with the wrong person or in a way that could damage connections that you value. Telling a close friend that you have a crush on your sister's partner may be okay, but telling your sister is unlikely to be wise. If you talk to a friend, you might get the issue off your chest. If the crush has become an obsession, which can happen when trying hard to not think of something, you may benefit from a session or two with a therapist. Often talking about something makes it a lot easier to handle, and it can often be the fix we need. A lot of the times, what we really need from a therapist is someone who is a safe stranger to whom we can tell our secrets. When we feel trapped and overwhelmed by an issue, whether it's a diagnosis of an STI or a prior decision we wish we hadn't made, or a relationship we regret, opening up about it can actually normalize our feelings and experiences. And once this happens, we often feel relieved and ready to let go of the burden and move on. If there's really no taboo in place to keep the relationship from happening, such as workplace rules, saying you cannot date people you work with, no office romances, you should still think through the emotional consequences of starting a relationship with that person. If the person is a coworker and the relationship ends badly, would you be able and willing to consider a hunt for a new job to avoid the emotional and personal fallout? If you began a relationship with an ex's friend or the ex of a friend, would the collateral relationships be able to survive? For instance, would the ex's best friend sacrifice their relationship with your ex if you began dating? Would they be okay with losing that friend in order to pursue a relationship with you? Would your friend bless a relationship between you and their ex? Or would you be losing a friend in the hopes of a potential romantic relationship with their ex? No relationship happens in a bubble. There are collateral people and relationships involved, and sometimes the thrill of the crush can flatline once the forbidden nature of it is removed. Think about that high calorie treat. You crave it and long for it, but seconds after swallowing the last bite, you're already regretting that you gave in to temptation and are imagining what you'll have to do to undo it. Treat giving in to a forbidden crush the same way. Okay, guys, we're going to switch it up a little bit and we're going to talk about men, basically, and would they really sleep with just about anyone? Okay, I mean, it is a sentiment that I've heard many times before, sometimes with tongue in cheek, a look of disgust, or a tear in the eye. It's clearly an overt generalization and exaggeration, but is there a little bit of truth to this folk psychology? So First of all, let's set the record straight. I don't think men are pigs and will sleep with anything. Not all of them, anyway. Um, we know that there's a full spectrum of pickiness in men, from the highly discriminating to the very relaxed. And this range can be found in women too. Look hard enough and you'll find men so picky that they never lose their virginity, and women who appear to have no standards at all. The point is that there is a lot of noise and variation. Psychological researchers know this all too well. This research is about finding a faint signal among the noise. Any neat black and white claims about sex differences, including claims that all members of one sex act the same way, should be met with skepticism. And that being said, there are patterns to be found among the noise, patterns that are clear enough to draw some conclusions about the typical mating behavior of each sex, but not enough to predict the behavior of individuals with a high degree of accuracy. Patterns that people might detect and use to help them make more accurate but still fallible judgments. And one of these patterns is that in the pursuit of sex, men, more than women, are willing to lower their standards. But there is one important piece of the puzzle often overlooked when discussing this. It's all about mating context. People can pursue sex and nothing more, or they can pursue sex with something that they want to commit to. These are two different reproductive strategies, distinct approaches to mating. They come with their own mating psychology. So humans, by and large, are pair bonded mammals, from citizens of megacities to small bands of hunter-gatherers. They tend to seek a partner to fall in love with and share their life with, almost as a default setting. And this has been the case for hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of years. This is not to say that this is what everyone does or that it is what people should do, just that it tends to be what humans typically do. Okay, so because of this default settings, humans are by and large really picky about their long-term mates. That's both sexes, to be clear. And if humans were like this, then first dates would look very different. We might find men dressed up in their finest while women wore their most comfortable pajamas. But no, both sexes are quite picky, and with good reason. Investing in a relationship is a huge commitment. And over the course of our evolutionary history, our ancestors who were picky about who they invested their time and effort in survived and thrived over their less discerning peers, peers who found themselves stuck with someone unwilling to reciprocate, with profound implications for their own survival and reproduction. So, long-term mating, while a popular choice, isn't the only way humans reproduce. We are capable of short-term casual mating as well. According to sexual strategies theory, under certain circumstances, this type of mating may have provided its own reproductive benefits to our ancestors. For women, short-term mating might have served to capture the attention of a particularly desirable man, a gateway to a long-term relationship. It may have also allowed them to benefit from assessing the resources and protection of multiple men rather than just one. And for men, short-term mating served as a way of having sex without commitment, plain and simple, a no strings attached thing. It might allow men to pass on more of their genes to future generations without the parental responsibility that usually accompanies this. But short-term strategies would have come with cost, risks to sexual health and reputation, to just name two, and these costs would have affected the sexes differently, often due to differences in reproductive biology. Only women risked being left to raise a child alone, for example. Overall, the cost benefit analysis reveals a great I don't know. I got lost in my things here, guys. Anyway, a great difference, I guess, between the sexes. For men, a short term strategy held the potential for great reproductive payoff with little risk. In contrast, for women, heavy costs were weighed against fairly modest and context dependent benefits. Thus, women evolved to use short term mating cautiously, maintaining a high level of pickiness as they did so. And men, in contrast, capitalized on the high benefit, low risk nature of short term mating by lowering their standards to make it easier to find willing short term mates. And as descendants of these players in this historic mating market, modern men tend to be more open to a range of attractiveness in casual sex than women. The sexes tend to have different standards for partners, but this is mainly restricted to the domain of casual sex. So, basically, men who appear to have low standards are likely doing it in the context of short term mating and at times in locations that lend themselves to casual sex. Can we use this lens of long and short term mating to help us? I think so. If you're looking for a stable long term relationship, it may be worth thinking about what you can do to ensure you come into contact with those seeking long term rather than short term relationships. And you may find someone using a short term mating strategy anywhere, but it's more likely to happen in nightclubs than libraries and in large groups of people with weak social ties than smaller, close knit groups where everyone knows each other's business. And it might also be worth considering what strategy you are following. Many people claim to desire a committed relationship, but hold the preferences and desires of someone interested in short term mating. So, yeah, I thought that was a little interesting. Hope you guys found it interesting as well. All right, guys, that is it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Please hit that follow button and share One Hot Mess with a friend. And I will talk to you guys next time. Have an amazing day.